low turnout in the elections is being linked to the controversies that have trailed the outcome of the February 25th presidential election. Well, this is the submission of the Center for Democracy and Development in its post-election report. And in the studio with us, we do have Idayat Hassan. She is the director for the Center for Democracy and Development. And in our overflow studio, we do have Ezenwa Nwago. He is an analyst and a board member of Yaga Africa. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, both of you. Well, Idayat, of course, I have to start with you. But before we get to your report, all of us here in the studio were watching what was going on in Kaduna. Idayat, from the result reeled out by the REC in Kaduna State, and of course the observations, especially raised by the People's Democratic Party agent right there, what are your thoughts and what should we be expecting in any moment now?
I think that this is part of our submission. First and foremost, it's to say diminished trust itself is laying in the institution, is actually shaping the wider perception of some of these outcomes, especially when you look at how the presidential elections were won. In places like Kaduna, PDP won the presidential elections. Many will actually expect that APC should not win these elections. It should be another PDP thing. So it's a matter of diminished trust. But again, the second issue is that there should actually be a consistency in the administration of its rules by the Independent National Electoral Commission. What is happening currently in Kaduna will be a test, a litmus test to see if they will consistently administer their rules. And you could hear the party agent of the PDP also making reference to Adamawa, where he was claiming that the IREF was one of the bases for actually pushing the results, the declaration into inconclusive. That was his submission, and you would actually expect that based on the IREF which he has presented, the same should actually be obtainable. So there are a lot of things here, and we have also heard about the supremacy of the Electoral Act to the INEC guideline itself, which continues to be a turning point. And now with the 7 days framework, an opportunity to actually reverse a result which is made if forcefully
all right, it does. Sincere apologies for having to butt in right now. We have to return back to Kaduna State, where the results actually we hear are being announced now.
Whatever I read here is what has been shown to us much earlier. I think probably is being covered by this. And this is the returns from where we have 14 contestants here, starting from AA Adamu Timotu, Shaman, ADC Zagi Caleb, Jibril Yusuf for ADP, Sani Uba for APC, Duya Andrew Bui for Abga, Al Hassan Yahya for APM, Musa Kalla Yahya for APP, Sake Jonathan for LP, Osman Hugu Suleiman for NNPP, Gambo Salus Abubakar for NRM, Muhammad Ashuru Isa for PDP, Lawal Hayatuddin for PRP, Idris Adamu Abubakar for SDP, and Ambassador Sania Yaya for YPP. Total votes council, which I also read out there for you. And by that power, vested on me by the Electoral Act and also the regulations of this, I would like to make a return of the candidate with the highest number of votes as presented to me by the local government returning officers, in which you are also a witness when they made a presentation. If you don't mind, I don't mind reading all of them again for you to see before I make my declaration. If you don't mind, I have the time to do that. AA have 652, 652. I don't know whether if we can project that for all to see. ADC is 2421, ADP 4141, APC 730002, ABGA 1471, APM 603, APP 325, LP 58283, NNPP 21405, NRM 1560, PDP 719196, PRP 4349, SDP 1403, YPP 0909. This total number of valid votes is 1546747. Total number of rejected votes is 19114. Total number of vote cast is 1565861. By this submission here, the party with the highest number of votes is APC with 730002, and the margin of lead here is much higher than the approved cancellation of 3,127. And because of this, I will make a return. So that is the return. Thank you.
Declaration. EC1.
EC1. EC8.
The one that can Operation. From EC1. Summary.
Yes, EC1.
EC1.
Enough from EC1. In the Kisuna, when the only one candidate. Very fast. So
Oh, you declare it common. All the pages in Kabul, every page.
C'est comment je Sani dans Sani.
Can babban ne za su yi Sani ina yi? An na ƙashe ita yi. Ba damuwa a yi duka ne. Wannan
kana san matsala
ka yi sunan na malam sai ka rubuta sunan
kasa ana samun matsala yana rihe
January. Take a look at all the pages. Where we have say one. Say one. She wants to say. No, so much. Yawa kun kwashe 40 Gs nan ko? Suna da zama ita kada da ke wannan ba.
Suna nan wajen kudin kasa. Suna tare da from ECS.
Wannan tana ba ya kai kafin tana da gaskiya.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to conclude this. I am Professor Lawal Bilbis. Here, I said that I am the returning officer for the 2023 Kaduna State Governorship elections. I held on the 18th of March 2023. The election was contested. The candidate received the following votes.
I can test one by one again.
Adamu Timothy Shama, 652 as read earlier. Zagi Khalid of ADC 2421. Jibril Yusuf of ADP 4141. Sani Uba of APC 730002. Dear Andrew Abui of Afgham 1471. Al-Hassan Yahya of APM 630. Musa Kalla Yahya of APP 325. Sake Jonathan of LP 58283. Osman Hugi Suleiman of NNPP 21405. Gambo Salisu Abubakar of NRM 1560. Mohammed Ashur Isa of PDP 719196. Lawal Hayatuddin of PRP 4349. Idris Adamu Abubakar of SDP 1403. Ambassador Sani Yahya of YPP 909. That Sani Uba of APC, having satisfied the requirement of the law, is hereby declared as the winner. Thank you.
Well, that's a breaking story coming from Kaduna State. They have a governor-elect in Uba Sani of the APC, 730,002, closely followed by Ashur Kudan of the PDP, 719,196, and the Labour Party's candidate Jonathan Asake of the Labour Party, yes, is coming at 58,283. Let's go to Idayat quickly to give us a sense of what this would mean for the state of Kaduna. I know you have your Situation Room and you've been following closely the election in Kaduna State. Paint for us a picture. We waited for this too long, but here it is at the end of the day. We have a governor-elect.
Idayat.
Okay. I think really for people of Kaduna, it will be that of continuity, because this is another APC administration that is actually taking over that will take over from another APC administration. So we expect to start seeing the strides which they have continued really in terms of industrialization of the state, diversification of the Kaduna economy, and an improvement in spite of the insecurity plaguing the state. They happens to be one of the outliers in terms of dealing with insecurity in the northwest of the zone. But I think on the immediate, there are things to actually consider. And these are part of what we have actually said in our post-election analysis, that diminished trust in institutions will shape wider perception when it comes to the acceptance of the result return, particularly in races where a narrow margin of victory is recorded, as we have seen in this case in Kaduna, or otherwise where the presidential results are not replicated at the subnational level. So Kaduna represents the two examples. One, PDP won Kaduna 3 weeks ago. Now APC has been returned, and APC has actually been returned with a very narrow margin.
Absolutely. Well, Idayat, the margin 11,000. Well, let's bring in Ezenwa Nwagu, of course, an analyst and board member at Yaga Africa. Of course, Ezenwa, I want to get your reaction to this result as reeled out by the returning officer of INEC in Kaduna State. Looking at the result polled by APC right there on the screen, 730,002 as compared to his closest rival from the PDP with 719,196. And of course, according to him, you know, the approved cancelled results, those were his words, is just about 3,000. So that issue of the margin of lead, the argument put across by the PDP observer there, he says it doesn't suffice for a supplementary election to be called, but instead, you know what, there is a clear winner even though the margin is very small. So your reaction to what we've seen in the last few minutes, Ezenwa?
Well, I think that across board, we're beginning to see returning officers who seem to have a clear grasp of the rules of the engagement, especially the guidelines and the Electoral Act. Unlike in the past when we saw situations stalling because of the lack of understanding of the rules. What then happens, what I've seen from Kaduna is that there is perhaps some clear understanding of what needs to happen in the kind of situation that they have. The interminable arguments by the agents will not suffice, because up till the end of the game, you keep seeing agitations. But if there is somebody who understands the rules, is able to put everyone in check, and then if there are still issues, grievances, there are other opportunities to ventilate all of those. The issue about the presidential election, the outcome of the presidential election in Kaduna State affecting the governorship, across board, where we saw that in Delta State, for instance, where the vice presidential candidate of the PDP is also an incumbent governor, the Labour Party won the presidential, but the PDP has swept the governorship election. Indeed, almost taking all the local governments in that state. The dynamics of a gubernatorial election is different. In 2011, President Muhammadu Buhari then had won, his party, the CPC, had cleared all the available positions in Katsina State. And the then governor, Shema, was actually even packing out of the government house, thinking that it's over for him. And when eventually the president did not win at that time. The Shema cleared won with a wide margin in Katsina, and the CPC only ended up having just Nasarawa State. So what we're seeing is that the subnational elections present a different kind of dynamics, the kind of mobilization, the kind of things that were thrown into the presidential were not necessarily available in the subnational state elections that we have seen, and that for me is what is important. And we need then to appreciate that our people are maturing, our voters are maturing, they are coming of age, they are able to distinguish which is which, and that which is nearer to them is more important. And then it also points to the fact that if you have a wave all across Africa, every presidential election introduces a new guy on the block. If you go to Uganda, you will have seen Bobby Wine and all of that. In Kenya, Ruto was not the one that was rooted to have to win the election. But at the end of the day, those parties need to perform much more consistently over a period of time. That is what will show whether the wave that they have is connected to a frequency, and even if it has a frequency, that it is also modulated.
And quickly, let's hear Hidayat's reaction to that as well.
Yes, I think I want to add to what he has actually said. What is just what's to add is basically that the fact that people also voted for a particular party in the presidential elections did not necessarily mean that they voted for the same party for the National Assembly position. So this is an election where we are seeing what we call the split ballot. So people vote based on what they want. Top ballot, they vote for one president. Then below the ballot in the National Assembly, they voted for these still conventional parties, which will mean that the same will not hold sway during the subnational elections. And when it comes to subnational elections, we say politics is actually local. And it's indeed local. And in these elections, we saw things play out. Personalities actually mattered a lot. And performance was also extremely important in these elections. This is where people are looking at who has performed, if he or she should actually be rewarded, and where they found that people had not performed, they actually voted them out. And parties were not really as important as we saw personalities hold sway, even some who have been in the political game forever. And that is why you see in Sokoto, people will not just actually be voting for the Aliyu himself, they are also looking for who is the man who is backing him. And this man who backed him had previously performed. As you have seen in Kano with NNPP, where the Kwakwansiya decided to give an Abba Kabir an opportunity to actually win the polls and follow their polls, they follow their ballot to the polling units throughout the night.
Right. Well, Hidayat, as we get ready to wrap up this conversation, of course, we have to talk about the report that you had released earlier in the day, where you said the low voter turnout in elections, you linked it to the controversies that trailed the outcome of the presidential. Well, give us an executive summary of what your report is and its implications, especially as we look to deepen our democracy.
I think the implications, one, I think the report makes a lot in terms of ballots, violence and validity itself. So if we talk in terms of process having worked very well in these elections, the violence that marked the election, the voter inducement that made people to vote a particular way, and the voter suppression itself actually queries the credibility of that outcome, not the process, the credibility of that outcome. And we have seen such widespread voter suppression, which has actually led to a form of more fragmentation amongst us on ethnic basis as a country. And I think this is very worrying, and it goes back to one of the questions you asked the last respondent before we came to speak. There is actually need for Nigeria to replicate something similar to the National Cohesion an integration commission in Kenya, which was actually immediately established post the 2007 violent Kenya elections.
Let me bring in. Let's close with Ezewan. Ezewan, let me bring you in now. It's quite interesting that you spoke about Kenya, and we saw the popular handshake in Kenya, which actually brought that peace between the former president Uhuru Kenyatta as well as Raila Odinga. What do you expect to see in Nigeria as we go forward, even before May 29?
Well, I think that the incendiary narratives and comments that followed the elections will be toned down by victories and the shock of losses. That clearly, I think this whole idea of making a fetish of peace commissions and all of those things does not in itself remove responsibility from law enforcement and security provisioning. What is important is that those things are moral, persuasive instruments, but those who have responsibility to enforce the law should do so without caring whose ox is God.
Well, interesting. We're looking forward to that handshake, and of course, more of those who've lost, really stretching out the hands to those who've won, just like we've even seen Teslim Folari of the APC in Oyo State actually reach out to the governor, Sheyi Makinde, who was declared the winner, and say, you know what, congratulations. But of course, we know Lagos and even Bauchi, which we saw earlier on in the day, they're saying, you know what, we outrightly reject that. But sportsmanship must win, and Nigeria, most importantly, must win in the end. Ezewan Nwagu, of course, an analyst from Yaga Africa, and of course a board member there, as well as Idayat Hassan, Director, Center for Democracy and Development. Thank you both for joining us tonight.